Officials at the US Geological Survey say an earthquake with a magnitude of 7.0 has hit off the Solomon Islands, but seismologists say it's unlikely to cause dangerous tsunami. The USGS said the quake struck about 80 kilometers off Lata Island around 2:30 p.m. Saturday local time. The focus was 10 kilometers deep.
The annual State of the Climate report released Thursday said 2014 was the warmest year on record, going back 135 years. Temperatures continued to rise and glaciers kept shrinking. The impact has been dramatic in Greenland, the huge ice-covered island between the North Atlantic and the Arctic Ocean.
In recent decades, it's certainly been melting more than is replenished from snowfall, and that's causing sea level to come up.
Evidence of the increased ice melt can be seen from the air in the form of these blue pools. Satellite images show that on the warmest day this month, half the ice sheet surface was melting, double the norm for this time of year.
Thousands of sinkholes are cropping up around the Dead Sea in the Middle East, so much so they're threatening tourism at the popular destination. You never know when and where a sinkhole will open up, perhaps swallowing a building or a road. Some areas have so many sinkholes, it looks like Swiss cheese.
This morning, the main route between California and Arizona is closed after a major interstate bridge collapsed.
A wild weekend for weather extremes. After a crippling drought, the area is now seeing historic rainfall that has brought flash flooding.
Torrential flash flooding has swept away homes in Arizona following heavy storms. Up to 3,000 homes and businesses were left without power after more than 50 electricity poles were knocked down. Water swept away part of a road in Wickenburg, but no fatalities have been reported.
Residents say they've never experienced anything like this.
Remarkable video to show you now as flash flooding sweeps through a village in Iran. This is in northern Iran, and the rushing water collapses homes right in front of us here. Look at this. 16 people are known dead, dozens still missing. In addition to these homes, the water swept away at least 25 cars as well.
Breaking news, a 4.0 earthquake rattling much of the Bay Area this morning. Centered in Fremont and hit at 2:41 this morning, and the quake registered on our seismograph right here at KPIX5. People reported feeling it, though, well beyond Fremont. So far, there are no reports of damage or any injuries.
We are now up to 12 aftershocks so far. This is on the Hayward Fault, which is to the east of, and it runs parallel to the more famous San Andreas Fault.
It felt like somebody just picked up my house, shook it, and then dropped it again. We just don't feel a lot of rumbling around the Hayward Fault. Very unusual.
By the way, the last time there was a major incident on the Hayward Fault was back in 1868.
Since the Hayward Fault historically triggers a major earthquake every 140 years, Brochure says another massive quake is due to hit the East Bay and warns residents to be prepared.
About 900 people were evacuated from their homes on the outskirts of the Kazakh city of Almaty after a mudslide hit the area.
The torrent of mud is being blamed on several consecutive days of exceedingly high temperatures that have melted mountain glaciers surrounding the city.
Good evening. All the warnings and fears of a hot, dry summer are coming to pass right now in the drought-stricken West, where dangerous wildfires are ranging in no fewer than 3 states. From Northern California, where residents are fleeing threatened neighborhoods east of the Napa Valley.
Flames shot 100 feet in the air and have burned more than 10 square miles.
Where a record-breaking drought has turned brush and trees into tinder.
To Montana, where fire has flushed vacationers from picturesque Glacier National Park.
This fire in Glacier National Park, Montana, lighting up 4,000 acres at the height of tourist season. Tonight, reinforcements, an elite team flown in, has spent their first day battling the 300-foot flames.
With still months to go, the western fire season has already far outpaced last year's, leaving a lot of Americans on edge.
Like, yo, fast, Dad, go! Holy crap, I go.
Still rolling.
Really? You can feel it? I can't feel it.
I can see it. If you look out that way, you see the...
20 seconds back.
All right, we're coming back on to 5.
All right, so if you live here in the Anchorage area, you probably felt what we did going right into that last commercial break.
In fact, it's still rolling here. Our lights are swinging back and forth in the newsroom. So we are trying to find out as soon as possible. We know that you're calling right now. We hear the phones ringing to find out what the magnitude is.
More than a dozen earthquakes have rattled Alaska's Aleutian Islands.
At last check, there have been 18 just since 5:30 yesterday. Most have been between the mid-3 and mid-5 magnitude range. But one just before 10 o'clock our time last night was a 6.9. They are all centered in the same area about 2,200 miles west of Seattle.
A magnitude 7 earthquake has rocked Indonesia's easternmost province of Papua. The U.S. Geological Survey says that quake was centered about 150 miles west of Jayapura, the provincial capital of Papua. Indonesia's Natural Disaster Agency says people panicked, ran out of buildings, but no immediate reports of damage or injuries here, and no risk of tsunami.
This looks like a scene from the underworld. These firefighters at Odena in Catalonia have worked in extreme conditions and through the night to bring the flames under control. The wildfire has laid waste to 1,000 hectares of land. It's not yet under control, but is no longer spreading. 500 people have been evacuated. The emergency services are at full stretch in 2 areas of France as they battle wildfires threatening to engulf homes and livelihoods. 33 static caravans have been destroyed and 10,000 holidaymakers moved to safety.
Heavy rains have rattled northwest Pakistan, leaving at least 69 dead and tens of thousands homeless. Flash floods washed away bridges, cut roads, inundated villages and farmlands.
The country's National Disaster Management Authority says more than 250,000 people have been affected by the freak conditions.
And the military evacuated more than 40,000 people from the rain-hit areas.
An unusually bright meteor soars through the sky over Buenos Aires. Meteors are common in the night sky, but not many are this bright. Just look at the massive green fireball and orange tail.
¡Cállate! ¡Cállate! ¡Concha, apurate!
Good evening. Queenslanders have been rattled by an historic 5.3 magnitude earthquake off our coast. The tremor sparked evacuations and damage to some homes. It's our second quake this year, measuring above 5 on the Richter scale.
A second aftershock recorded just minutes later.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Queensland has been rocked by its biggest earthquake in almost 100 years. The magnitude 5.7 hit this afternoon. It was felt from Wide Bay to the south of the Gold Coast, and experts warn another tremor could be on the way.
This one is a larger event, and in fact it could be up to 10 to 15 times larger than the one on Thursday.
Earthquakes are so rare in Queensland, most of us aren't taught what to do if one hits.
A volcano has erupted on the remote Indian Ocean island of Reunion, the same island where part of an aircraft wing thought to belong to the missing Boeing 777 of Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 was found on Wednesday.
It was the third time the Piton de la Fournaise, or Peak of the Furnace, has erupted this year.
The area was evacuated yesterday, and the local government imposed a ban on access to the Piton de la Fournaise volcano.
A sudden storm ripped through an outdoor festival near Chicago Sunday, killing 1 person and injuring 15. Authorities tried to clear the area as the storm bore down but there was no time.
These severe storms moving east now after producing dangerous hail, high winds, and tornadoes across the Midwest.
Last night, winds gusting to 80 miles an hour knocked trees into houses and power lines into streets. Nearly 275,000 homes and businesses lost power. It was a deadly storm last evening in New Hampshire.
This is a region that has been crushed by severe weather in the last 24 hours. Scott, just this afternoon, a powerful thunderstorm moved through the Boston area with golf ball-sized hail, leaving thousands without power.
Good evening. In less than 24 hours, the size of one of the largest wildfires burning in California, the Rocky Fire, has more than doubled. 73 square miles scorched. 24 homes are gone. More than 12,000 residents told to evacuate. Dry conditions and shifting winds are not helping the nearly 2,000 firefighters now battling just this one immense blaze, which is still only 5% contained.
This massive fire remains unpredictable. Last night, enormous flames, apocalyptic-looking landscapes. The Rocky Fire doubling in size since yesterday, scorching 20,000 more acres in just 5 hours, and it's threatening more than 6,000 structures.
The Rocky Fire broke out last Wednesday and has been growing at what officials describe as an unprecedented rate.
From fire we go to floods and an emergency situation unfolding right now at the opposite end of the country. Floodwaters so severe that mandatory evacuations have been ordered. Neighborhoods near Tampa are underwater. Some people rescued from their homes by boat.
Central Florida is drenched, pounded by incessant rain caused by a series of stalled weather fronts.
In 12 hours, we've picked up a month's worth of rain.
Back here in the Tampa Bay area, it has rained every day but one over the past 3 weeks. Over 48.7 inches so far this year. In Miami, where it's usually wetter, they've had 26 inches less rainfall. They're in an extreme drought.
Five people have been confirmed dead in northwest China after floodwaters swept away 9 tourists in the province of Shanxi. The other 4 remain missing. The flood was triggered by heavy rain, which also caused landslides in some areas.
The precipitation at the village was recorded at 145.7 millimeters, the highest over the past 30 years.
We stay in Mexico, where the so-called volcano of fire near the western city of Colima is spewing a huge ash cloud 3 kilometers into the sky. Look at it there. The Colima volcano has been troubling Mexican authorities for several weeks after becoming noticeably more active a month ago, triggering concerns that a major eruption is on its way.
It was wicked and it was intense. You can see it coming in, the sheets of rain sweeping across the city. Although the warnings were there, nobody could have predicted just how wild it would be.
Some parts of the city absolutely slammed with hail.
So much hail, it looked like Snowmageddon all over again.
We had a very intense lightning.
Even first responders were caught off guard, scrambling to manage the overwhelming calls to emergency.
A heat wave has killed at least 40 people in Tokyo. Temperatures soared above 95 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 days in a row. More than 11,000 people have been hospitalized.
Days of torrential rain, brought on by Cyclone Komen, continue to wreak havoc across much of India, with West Bengal and neighboring Odisha state among the hardest hit areas. Flash floods have claimed dozens of lives. Rivers have run their banks, roads and bridges have been washed out, dams are overflowing. Many villages remain underwater.
Floods from days of torrential rain have claimed at least 180 lives in India, with 1 million people sheltering in relief camps.
Floods, a high death toll is also reported in Pakistan, where the floods have killed at least 118 people. Authorities say flooding has affected some 800,000 people in the more than 2,000 villages. Thousands of houses have collapsed or are partially damaged.
More than a month of heavy monsoon rains and the tail end of a cyclone have triggered some of the worst flash floods and landslides in living memory in Myanmar.
With tens of thousands of people stranded in mountainous western border regions, floods and landslides there have swept away homes, roads and bridges after weeks of relentless rains. Burma making a rare appeal for overseas help.
Swathes of the country are hit by rooftop-high floods and landslides.
At least 99 people are known to have died so far, and more than 900,000 have been affected. Those unwilling to leave their homes are living in houses inundated with water.
A rare earthquake rattles parts of Maryland Saturday night, and nearly 100 people report feeling the earth move.
Experts say it's small, but it's still the strongest earthquake here in Maryland in at least a year. Like living on the fault line, an earthquake jolts this quiet Anne Arundel street.
I heard a big boom, and my daughter looked at me and she said, "Was that thunder?" And I said, "I don't think so."
This graph pinpoints the exact moments the earth shakes. The U.S. Geological Survey detects the magnitude 2.2 earthquake just after 10 p.m. Saturday.
I went outside to see if maybe it was something else, like a big truck or an accident had happened, because it shook the entire house. It wasn't like a little bit of shaking, it was quite a bit.
You get kind of strange having, several earthquakes like that in a couple of years.
Deadly Typhoon Soudelor swept across Taiwan Saturday, leaving a path of downed trees, traffic lights, and power lines in its wake. Torrential rains poured down on the country, causing widespread damage and flooding in several cities. Rescue workers worked vigilantly to evacuate people from their homes trapped by the storm. The typhoon caused mudslides in a mountain village, carrying trees and debris and endangering homes in its path. Winds reached up to 100 miles per hour, Taiwan's Central Weather Bureau said.
Excessive rainfall that has just unleashed across this area. There have been some unconfirmed reports of over 1.2 meters of rain. That is excessive stuff in a short period of time. And this storm was so massive that the entire island was experiencing sustained tropical storm force winds of at least 64 kilometers per hour at one stage,
leaving a record 4.3 million households without power.
After pounding Taiwan and leaving 6 people dead there, 4 missing, over 100 injured, Soudelor landed in the Chinese mainland on Saturday evening in Fujian province.
The Xinhua state news agency says at least 14 people have died. The typhoon brought down houses and triggered landslides in the country's Zhejiang province.
Some 3,000 houses have been destroyed and large areas of crops damaged.
Certain counties in the province have been submerged under 700 millimeters of rain in the past days, a level not seen in 120 years.
The direct economic losses are estimated at some $1.43 billion.
And then yesterday, unbelievable video to show you out of Colorado Springs. Take a look at this. This a retaining pond gave way after they got about 3 inches of rain, and watch the power of that water just pushing through, literally washing cars away. And look at the hail that's also on the ground. It looks like snow. Some areas the hail was up to 3 inches deep. And in other parts of Colorado and parts of Denver, look at this. This is Denver. The rainfall just coming down, and we could see more of this again today. Monsoonal moisture coming in. In fact, in some areas, the hail actually congealed, looked like ice flows.
County residents are reporting they were jolted awake by an earthquake this morning.
CBC's Andrea Grimes joins live from Bernardsville at the epicenter of the quake. Andrea.
Well, Chris and Mary, this is a confirmed 2.5 magnitude earthquake, a small one that the U.S. Geological Survey says hit just about 2 miles north of where we're standing here in Bernardsville in Somerset County. Police say they received several calls from residents who felt it, but so far no reports of any injuries or any major damage.
Folks in several surrounding towns heard it and felt it. 911 switchboards lit up. People reported hearing an explosion. No bomb, no disaster, no damage, just a little seismic activity near the Ramapo Fault.
In this country, warnings tonight of a 1-2 punch from nature that could devastate parts of the West, already in the midst of a historic drought emergency. Today, fire officials raised the threat level to the highest fire danger possible. And that move comes as forecasters warn of what's being called a Godzilla El Niño event this winter that could trigger some of the strongest storms we've seen in decades.
This is what they call level 5. The highest fire danger rating in the nation triggered today. The drastic move signals tinderbox conditions on the verge of exploding. This year of extremes feeding on each other. Fire fueled by a crippling drought, exacerbated by a heat wave. And now the forecast calls for a monster El Niño this winter. Storms capable of triggering floods, mudslides, and mayhem.
We have 4-year record drought. We had late spring rains, and now we're seeing conditions that firefighters have never seen.
Scientists say warming ocean waters are surging towards the U.S. With it, the potential for once-in-a-lifetime storms. This El Niño could be among the most powerful ever.
This is the Godzilla El Niño, if it matures and actually comes to fruition. Great droughts always end in great floods.
Heavy rains, high tides and strong winds have claimed the lives of at least 6 people in southern Chile. Hundreds of people were moved to temporary shelters and over 100,000 homes were left without power. Until the recent downpours, much of the country had been suffering a drought.
And while Central America is suffering from a severe drought, in Argentina 3 people have died and 20,000 have been evacuated after severe floods hit the capital on Friday. The Luján River has risen by 5.37 meters, seeing floods even reaching the city's famous basilica. More rain is predicted to fall in the region in the following days.
Volcanic earthquakes are increasing in frequency on Mount Sakurajima in western Japan's Kagoshima prefecture. Officials with the meteorological agency are telling people to be ready to evacuate. The officials say they have observed massive tectonic changes on the mountain.
They detected more than 1,000 volcanic earthquakes.
Good evening. We begin with a remarkable number. Right now, around 95 wildfires are burning in the western U.S. And tonight, the U.S. military is answering an urgent call for help. At least 100 troops have been called up in Washington state, the first deployment of active duty soldiers to battle fires in 9 years.
The Chelan complex fire torching tens of thousands of acres, swallowing neighborhoods, destroying lives.
In the west, triple-digit temperatures, wind, the ravages of drought, creating the perfect firestorm. More than 25,000 firefighters now battling blazes in 10 states.
In California alone, they're destroying 1,000 acres an hour.
Crews in the West are calling for reinforcements from across the country.
Extreme heat is making the battle all the more difficult. It has been a very hot day in much of the country.
Across this country, the heat wave now gripping the east, the tornado just hitting near Denver. And from Idaho tonight, this fire whirl shooting flames 100 feet into the sky.